choose between individualism and socialism. I don't mean communism as what we talk
like
about,
a commune.
but like a commune.
Okay.
So you've got the extremes of individualism.
And by individualism, you mean like on your own?
Rugged individualism has kind of come under fire here recently.
Me and mine, I take care of my family.
But me and mine, I take care of mine. I'm on my own.
Like, I'm not relying upon anyone else for support.
Well, let me just spill it.
You're going to have to if you're going to make me choose.
All right. So when I say individualism, I think about American individualism, pioneers, how we came to be. Basically, my family first.
People just took off in search of something better, not really knowing how it was going to pan out. And not depending upon anyone else.
Not depending upon anybody else. So you have a lot of farmers there. I mean, you basically have to. It's not just farmers. Like you have to become everything.
Right.
And the reason I guess I bring this up is because I keep wanting to say American individualism, but that's what I'm thinking of, is the American individualism that's kind of being dumped on by, people on, let's say, the left. The individualist can look at their individualism almost as a god. It's like, hey, it's me, it's mine,
You are the provider. You are the one taking care.
And I think that can be a god. I truly, I did that sermon, I put it on YouTube, it's been a few months back, but it's like, the problem with independence. It's like you can become so independent that you don't rely on God. And let's say you succeed in your individualism. The tendency is to not look to God. And I feel like in that sermon I referenced the Tower of Babel. And like you look back at the Tower of Babel and it's almost kind of like, well, God messed them all up because he was afraid. Because it almost looks like that in the text. Because he's like, well, now there's going to be nothing restrained from them. But I think the problem is that the people of Babel said, hey, we are going to build a tower. We are going to build, and I think the key phrase is, we are going to build a name for ourselves. We will be self-sufficient.
Right.
We will sustain ourselves. We will make a name. And I think that is the error. That is the error of rugged individualism. When it's like, hey, let's build these things. Let's build these plantations. Let's build these roads. Let's name them after ourselves. Let's name our farms after ourselves so that our name can live on. And I'm not saying that that's not natural, and I'm not necessarily saying that that's inherently bad, but you can see where the error can go. It's like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. I mean, there's got to be some reservation for God because, I mean, even you use the example a minute ago of a farmer, so just follow that track. A farmer can work as hard as he wants to work in planting and growing. But if you have a bad year, you don't get enough rain, and your crop is pointless.
Yeah.
What am I trying to say? Wasted, basically.
It didn't produce.
It does, yeah. Then what do you have? I mean, yes, you've worked hard. Yes, you've put in long hours. Yes, you've even put in money and effort. But you don't have anything to show for that. Like, you cannot control everything. You are not God. Should
the individualist realize I'm doing the work, I'm putting in my time. If a man doesn't work, he shouldn't eat, right? So I realize that I'm not going to sit on my bum. I'm going to get to work and I'm going to do what I know to do, and I'm going to try to provide for my family. Should he realize that God is ultimately sovereign? He is in charge of whether my crop fails or whether it produces, whether my animals live or whether they get a disease and die, whatever.
Right.
I think that's the saving grace of individualism. I do think the error is very, very real. And
because you get to feeling like you are God, that you are the one that is producing these things. You are the one that is providing and protecting and producing all of these things.
Right.
And yes, it does depend upon you, but the ultimate factor is God. The one that controls the weather and controls the crops and controls the animals. He is a factor in that as well. You are not the only God in this scenario. Mm-hmm. So what was your original question?
I really just wanted to get into individualism versus communism. And socialism is a very, very, I would say it's more popular now than it was even in the 70s, that it kind of people really started kind of to attach themselves to this idea of a commune, of communism done right. The ideal COMMUNE-ism can be found in the Bible.
Okay.
At the end of Acts chapter number 2, people, they came to accept Christ, and they, it was when after the day of Pentecost, and all these people got saved, and they were reborn into the family of God. At the end of Acts chapter number 2, you see all these people coming together, and it says they had all things common, and they went house to house, and they did the spiritual thing, and they prayed and all that, but they also shared their bread with one another. It said, I think in the same part when it says they had all things common, they sold their possessions, and like everybody else's, and that they all shared, and they went house to house preaching, praising God, and all that stuff. But it's like, to me, that's what a pure commune would look like. And
our modern day word would be a community.
Community.
Yes.
But I think
even in a community, you have a sense of individualism. Like you have I feel like a community, for me at least, is a good blend, is a good mix of the two. Because I don't know that I could really get on board with either one of the extremes.
But here's the question. Here is, I guess, the question honed in. If you had to choose, I think on both of these are both extremes. Obviously, they're both extremes. But if you had to choose between one or the other, which one would you choose and why?
See, this is a hard question for me, because my natural instinct is instantly individualism.
Why? That's my question.
Well, my natural instinct is individualism because
you're all that in a bag of
introvert.
chips?
I'm an introvert. I prefer to be by myself.
So
I don't like everybody being all in my business. I don't like all that. But I don't know how I would feed my family if it all depended upon me. Like if I couldn't just go to the store and buy things. I am a terrible hunter.
I kind of busted you out on my video the other day, didn't I? My chicken video.
Yeah, you did. I'm a city girl.
I was thinking about that. I was like, man, that wasn't very kind.
No, you just threw me all under the bus.
It's like, I should have added something funny in there or something to counteract, the shade I threw you, but I didn't. I was just like, she's a city girl, man. She's from Dallas, Texas.
But it's true. I'm not denying it. That would be my holdup. Because I feel like I'm the kind of person that I can learn just about anything. So as far as just about anything else, I feel confident that I could figure it out. I could learn. But the hunting and gathering
and the killing
and
the plucking,
yeah,
and the skinning,
and food is an important detail for survival.
Oh, it's high up there on the survivability scale.
So I might have to join the commune simply to survive.
Man,
as far as the food goes.
So do you see though how, like, if there were such a thing as a pure commune, and I think that's what I know. Okay, so me and you are both conservatives, I would say, politically,
yes,
religiously and all that, but you have to see what people see in the idea of communism that's good. Like,
yes,
what comes to my mind is, and this is the only thing I can really run through this, is that it's the idea, it's the experience of going to like a summer camp. Okay, you've got your cabins, you have you're living kind of close. This is what I would say is more of a commune than even a community. It's like, you're all kind of close, but it's not just like, well, it's an apartment complex. It's like you've got your own little places, but you've got some things that are common. Like at a particular time, you all go together and you all eat. And then this sounds weird, but at a certain time, after swimming or whatever, you all get together and you, obviously in different places, but you shower. and then you go to your, with Christian camps, you have like a little devotion time and church time, and the bell rings or whatever, and then there you are, and you're all worshiping together, and you're waking up, and you're doing devotions together, and you're eating together, and you're doing these things together. But then you have your little separate times. It was just like the first couple of days, and I'm sure you probably relate to this in the Christian camps that you've been to, but the first couple of days, it's just like, it's awful, because you're kind of detoxing from electronics, and you're with these people that you don't really know or you don't know well, and you're missing your conveniences of home and all that stuff. You're missing your bed, you're missing your house, whatever. But after about 2 or 3 days, you're kind of starting to get to know each other a little bit, and you get to where you can have like actual real conversations with people. And then it's like, then it's, for me, it's maybe my personality, I guess, but I start to finally observe all the beauty around me, and like, man, this is pretty cool, and we're in the woods here, and man, there's nature, and this is all really neat, and I mean, you still miss your people, very much so, but it's like, you can see the purity in, if we all came together for one cause, and because when you're with a group of people for several days, you kind of do become friends. Like, you can either become friends or bitter enemies, and it's just better to be friends. But that's what I see when I think of commune, and I'm not saying that's how it would go, but when I think of a pure commune or pure community, that's what I think of.
And I think there are some strengths in that, because you're going to have different people that have different strengths, and when you put all of those things together, then, I mean, your community, your commune as a whole has those strengths. If you have someone within your commune that is a really good, like, huntsman or fisherman, or you have someone that is a good seamstress, then they can kind of take care of those needs for anyone within that commune. You have someone that is really good at growing crops and keeping things alive and all that sort of stuff. Well, then your commune now has that strength. You have someone that's a good teacher. Now your commune has that strength. And so I can see the upside of it. But I think there is a downside too in relying upon someone else to always be those things for you.
Like we talked about, the individualist can see themselves as, well, I am the provider, I am God. The commune, and this is something I've thought over the last couple of days, is like, I think the downfall of the commune is, I feel like what becomes God inevitably is the security.
Whoever the most talented person is within your commune usually becomes the God.
Well, I think the security becomes the God, or whatever provides the security. Becomes the God. Whomever.
Yes.
But then what are you doing? I mean, you kind of jump out of the frying pan into the fire if you go from individualism to communism, because then, instead of relying on you, between you and God, or even just you then rely on somebody else who may or may not, and I would lean towards even may not, have your best interest at heart.
But see, I think either way, you could still be relying upon God. It's just going to have to be an individual choice. But I feel like even more so, and maybe this is just me again, but I feel like for me, even more so in the individual realm, it's going to be easier for me to rely upon God, because I know what my failures are, my shortcomings are. And I'll be like, all right, God, I'm going to do what I can here, and here.
So you just be
but
honest.
But you know that I'm really terrible at these other things, and I'm going to need some help here. Whereas within a commune, I would be more likely to seek out help from another person in those things that I know I have a shortcoming.
So rather than seek up, you seek this way.
I would, because I can see those people. It would be natural for me to approach them first.
Your faith in them.
Right. At least first. If they failed or if they couldn't get it done, then I might turn to God. But I feel like it would be more natural, I would be more apt to look at those people first before taking it to Him. I mean, I feel like we do that now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Car breaks down. I'm not like, oh man, hey God, what do I do with this? I'm gonna just take it to the mechanic. Like, what do I do with this?
Yep. Well, speaking of like a car, I remember it's been a few years ago. Probably, man, it's been, man, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago. I don't remember. It's been a few years ago. Things got kind of tight in our finances, and I can't remember what it was. We were trying to pay a baby off, or what we were trying to do, but things got tight, and my automatic response was, okay, we had 2 paid off cars at the time, and my automatic response was, okay, I can go and get a good interest rate and go get a loan on my car and basically go back in debt on my car, but relieve
Have the money for now.
Have a chunk of money for right now, and that will get us through this, hopefully get us through this season. Now, that actually did work because things worked out later, but I remember thinking not long after that happened, I don't remember if I was reading the Bible or listening to a sermon, but I remember kind of being convicted about it, because it was like, okay, I mean, this worked, okay, but what should I have done initially? And you see where I'm going.
Yeah.
I should have sought out God first.
And he may have said,
yeah, that's okay, whatever. But, you know, I took it from him, I took from God the possibility for him getting glory for himself.
Yeah.
Because he might have just provided the money.
Yeah.
But I said, no, I got to do it.
Yeah. It's on me.
It's on me. And so, and I think that's where individualism can go awry, is because, you know, you're trying to move things, shake things around to provide for yourself, and that's honorable. That really is honorable.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I, you know, if somebody is going to watch this that's a believer, they would probably agree with that. But if you're not a believer, you would say, well, if God doesn't exist, then that point is moot.
I still think for me, if I had to choose between the extremes, I still think I would prefer individualism.
It'd be kind of like that meme that we saw the other day with the lion. It's like, what did it say? It had a lion. It had a lion that was running free. And
oh yeah.
What, I can't remember what it said.
It was talking about the idea that the lion in the cage was, you know, it had free healthcare, it had free meals, and it had all of these. Basically, it had all of its needs provided.
Yeah, it had security, shelter.
But it had no freedom. And then the one had freedom, but it had no security of any type. Like everything that it had or did not have rested upon it.
I think we could dig a little bit deeper into what would be the extreme dangers of both. Like, well, I think we already exhausted that on the individualism, at least. Like, okay, the extreme is I see myself as God, and therefore, when things go awry, I'm out. Like, I mean, it could kill me. It could, you know, starve my family. That's an extreme there. But what's an extreme of, you know, commune, or living with that idea as kind of your model motif for life?
I mean, depending upon who falls into leadership, it could be a lot of different extremes.
What do you mean?
Because in a commune, it's inevitable that someone is going to take charge. And depending upon that person's character and what type of person you end up with in charge, and you could very well find yourself in a dictatorship.
So you don't think it's possible for something like a commune or community like I'm speaking of, you don't think it's possible for something like that to exist in a peaceful, you don't think it's possible for that to exist in a peaceful long term?
No.
Or do you think it's inevitable that
yes,
people will be people and people
yes,
will be corrupt? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Because there's going to be someone that has a stronger personality, you know, and you're going to have some that are more mild-mannered. You're going to have some that are more extroverted and charismatic, and you're going to have some that are more quiet and laid back. And that balance is going to inevitably fall. You're going to have someone that ends up taking control even if they aren't necessarily in control within like name and title, they're going to be the ones that are shaping people's minds. This may be a terrible example, I don't know. But I feel like you and I have seen this firsthand in churches that do not have pastors. You can walk in a church that does not have a pastor, because you did that for a while, like you did a lot of pulpit supply. And within 15, 20 minutes, definitely by the time you leave there, you know who is in charge there.
Yep.
And it may not even necessarily be the deacon. It may be the sweet little old grandma sitting on the back row. But she knows, and everybody else in that building knows, she's in charge.
Yep.
She's the alpha.
Yep.
To put it in simple
That's
terms.
a great one. No, I think that's a great way to put it. And even if you don't know, even like, a lot of times we're on the disadvantage there because we don't know the people.
Mm-hmm.
But even if we don't know who is in charge,
Yep.
you kind of, you like, this kind of goes over.
Sometimes there's even like there's one man up there that he's making the announcements, and he even tells you, I'm the deacon here, or I'm on the pastor search committee, whatever. But it's pretty evident he is not the one actually in charge.
Yeah,
he may be the title.
He's the face.
Yeah.
And I think even in churches with pastors, that same thing can happen. It's like the pastor, he's the face and he does the teaching and all this and that, but he's kind of got to watch himself because he's sort of looked at, and I'm not saying all churches are like that, but some, it's just like, he's the guy, but he's really, everybody knows that he's just a temporary employee.
Yep.
Everybody knows that.
It's sad, but
That's
it's true.
very, very sad.
It's true, though.
Then you can get on the authoritarian side, though, too, when the pastor he thinks he's the bomb.com and he's going to run over everybody.
Yeah.
There's and
in that case, that's where I'm talking about you could end up in a dictatorship because the person that actually is the alpha is in charge of money, whatever. And then you've got a real problem.
Yeah. And I think this is what's so attractive about communism is like you have this dream of, well, what will keep it pure is a good system of checks and balances. And so we'll give common people, blue collar people, we'll give them, we'll put them, because they know where we come from. And so we'll put them in power and they will keep things in order. But so many times, and I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about this, like the only reason that blue collar Joe hasn't gone nuts with power and authority is because he's never had it.
Yeah. Yep. You don't know what he'll look like.
You do not know.
Yep.
You're assuming way too much. You're assuming that you know his character. And
within those parameters, you do know his character.
Yeah.
But extending the parameters also extends the possibility that he's going to adapt.
It's almost like lottery winners, and somebody, blue collar person, wins the lottery. And man, the statistics are crazy against people that win the lottery. Like within, what was it you were talking about the other day?
Yeah,
10 years or something?
I can't remember now.
Like,
it's not
all
long,
their
though.
money is gone.
Most of them file bankruptcy.
And why is that? They don't know how to handle it.
They have no idea how to spend money.
So how arrogant is it to say, well, it's about, putting the right person. I mean, I guess as far as America goes, we've got our problems.
Yeah.
There is no doubt we've got our problems. And we could just go on and on and on, But at the same time, man, compared to other countries, other nations, it's not.
But the thing about America, and you said it's got its problems, it's got its faults, but we do have a decent checks and balance system. Like we're talking about having one person in power or even possibly a couple of people in power. But with America, you've got a president, you've got a vice president, you've got the House, you've got the Senate, and you've got all these people that are supposed to work together to ultimately get to the will of the people. And
check each other the whole way.
Right. That's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always work out that way because you've got corrupt people in power.
And then you can get to where you have too many of one persuasion in power.
Right.
And I really think, people like conservatives, I think conservatives and liberals probably think the same way, that things would just be restored to order if our party would just sweep everything and we'd be in control of everything. And that is not so.
I mean, it would fix the problems for us.
Yeah.
But it would create problems.
In the immediate. But I think even if whichever side got complete control of power, it would only be a matter of time before all of that would be corrupted.
Yeah, I agree.
Because then you're not checked.
And you basically become self-serving. You're serving your own interest without considering the interest of the other side.
Yeah.
And that's not right either.
Regardless,
whether that's what I think or not, it's not right for me to not consider the other person's welfare and well-being.
I think conservatives need liberals, and liberals need conservatives.
I agree.
And they need to fight it out. And you've got extreme ideologies on both sides for sure.
Yeah.
But you need each other to check and balance each other. Otherwise, you go unchecked, and then corruption is inevitable.
I agree.
So, I guess going back to the original question, and you've already answered that. If you had to choose between extremes, you would choose individualism.
I would.
So,
I feel like that is perfectly in keeping with my personality, though.
yeah.
What would you say you would choose?
Man, that's a hard one.
I don't think you could survive without other people.
See, I like to think individualism.
Mm-hmm.
I like because, and kind of like my own personal journey that I'm on right now is, trying to be more self-sufficient. And, I'm becoming Farmer Josh by the day. But it's just like
we have 3 chickens. He's a farmer.
Got my bibs, Liberty overalls, got my Becky.
They're so special.
But man, that's a hard one because I feel like the right thing, I think the better thing would be individualism. But man, I have to have people, and like I can see. Maybe it's a romantic notion for me. It's just like I got this idea in my head to where, we all live together and we're all happily ever after, and it's just we're.
And like I think as far as the mechanics of it, you could make it on your own. As far as just like being able to survive and take care of yourself. But when I say you would need other people, I'm talking about emotionally.
I know.
Like you like to watch that show Alone, where these people are out there by themselves, and like, I don't think you would last 2 or 3 weeks on that. It's just something like that.
Yeah, there was one guy that left in one day.
That would be you.
Because, he had a bear or whatever, a cougar coming after him. He's like, I'm out on that business. And like, I'm with you, partner.
Like, I don't know. I think for you, it's like that sounds like a romantic type notion. But I have a hard time seeing you actually doing that.
I know.
Just simply because you enjoy being around other people.
Yep. But here's the thing, though. I think that when it comes to individualism, I think you can actually have community within individualism, and I think that's.
I think I said that earlier. It's like a modern day community. Yeah. That's like what we are. Like our little neighborhood on our road, we have 7 houses?
Yeah, something like that.
But I feel like we have pretty good community with our neighbors. I'm not depending upon them to pay my water bill or raise my chickens or raise my kids. But if I needed something, if I had an emergency, if I had a problem, I think I could go to any one of our neighbors and say, hey, I need help.
Yeah.
And I feel like they would feel comfortable coming to me for something.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's what a modern day community is supposed to look like.
So as much as like individualism and
at least in America, American community.
I think as much as rugged American individualism is dumped on now, it's just like, because there can be a lot of pride attached to that, and that is absolutely legitimate. I think, what people are not considering is that with individualism, you can have community. And I think that's where it's at.
Yeah. And honestly, I love that because, like, our children get to go and spend time with my stepdad, who lives right up the road from us, who is a handyman of all kinds.
Yeah.
And so our 5-year-old is learning how to take apart a lawnmower and, just things like that. Like, all the time, he gets to be involved in that, which is not something that he would necessarily see at home.
Yep.
And you're getting to teach him how to work with, chickens and animals and Like, the boy's not scared of any kind of animal. Like, he tries to pick up snakes when you're not even with me, and I'm like, no, put the snake down. You know, like he gets to be exposed to all those kinds of things. And I feel like even church can be a type of community. You know, when you have other people there that are at least mostly like-minded with you.
Yeah.
You know, and they build friendships and relationships there. And I don't think community is a bad thing, but I think if you have to choose between the two, it ought to be your family. You. Because I feel like that is what's most vital, are those relationships.
Well, I think we both want the same thing. We look at it maybe a little from different angles, but I think we both end up on the side of individualism if you can have community.
Yeah. And I feel like right now in America, that's what we can have.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing. I mean, even as, like, when we were living in South Mississippi, I taught piano lessons. You know, so for somebody that wanted their kid to learn music and they don't have an ear for music at all, you can take them to someone else and allow them to learn that from them.
Yeah.
You know, whereas in a purely individualistic society, you would not have that. Like, they would not know anything you did not know.
Yeah.
And so I feel like there are benefits to community, no doubt. Like, it expands your children's minds beyond the talents that you have.
Right. This is probably too much to bring you tack onto the end of this, but I feel like what they tried to do in Seattle was several blocks. I think it was several blocks in the city of Seattle, and they called it something, Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone or something like that. They called it several different names, but one of them was CHOP and one of them was CHAZ, or acronyms for Capitol Hill something. And basically they blocked off several blocks of city and were like, hey, we've established our own country. You remember hearing about this?
Yes, I do.
And, you know, it's just like, hey, we've got this utopia. But it was only a matter of time before crime shot through the roof. They didn't let police in. Police were like, they wiped their hands of it and said, we're not going in there. And so it's just like, hey, we've got all this. We've got City Hall, which I think was in that zone. And it was just like, it was only a matter of time before guns started showing up and there was really bad crime and business owners started getting killed.
Yep.
Because that idea of communism, it had its chance right there. And then corruption, and there was a drug lord or something that ended up at the very top of it.
Yep.
You know? And so he was wielding his power, and eventually, I think it was the president maybe that called into it and called in the National Guard, and it was just like, now y'all are done. So, but
yep.
I'm not saying that that's a pure representation of what that is, but
kind of sloppily thrown together.
Yeah, it was just like it's not good. But anyway, that's a good talk.
Yeah.
So I like that. Maybe
I had no idea where you were going with that originally. You started busting out with individualism. Like, whoa, man, getting real deep on me here.
Something I've been thinking about lately. Thank you for listening or watching or whatever this turns into. We hope you enjoy it. Choose wisely.
That was a really funny statement you just made.
What?
You said left wing, and on the right you have the right wing. Don't confuse them. Don't put the left wing on the right.
Did I do that?
Yeah, you said. No, you just said on the right you have the right wing.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. On the right you have the right wing. Don't go out there. You will die. On the left you have the left wing. They're crazies. You will also die. You have a lot of wind and wind turbulence, and you will die. Please do not exit the plane. The plane, the plane.
This felt like it was pretty obvious. Yeah. On the right, you have the right wing. I want to see you do the chicken dance. Not the right. All right, no more while we're driving.